about what God's been teaching me within the last week, 2 weeks or so. Um, and I apologize. I thought I was going to have a lot more time to prepare for this message, but life happened, and that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about tonight. Life happening, those hiccups that come up that get in the way of our lives, that or what we would deem as our lives, but that God uses for our own good. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about a training philosophy that we use. It's called pressure and release. All right, so this is a process that we use, or a philosophy that we use when training with horses. It simply consists of applying a pressure into the life of the horse, and when they respond appropriately, they release. This is how horses learn. They learn from that release of pressure. So it's quite simply, we're going to do it with the most simplest thing here. I'm going to give you a little demonstration. I'm going to push on her head, and she looks away, so I'm releasing. It's the most simple thing we can do. One of the other things is I'm going to apply pressure on her pole. When she puts her head down, I release. I'm going to let her leave it down there as long as she wants. But now as we look at this pressure and release, this is a philosophy that we use in training horses. But it's also a philosophy that not really a philosophy, but it's the same method that God uses in our lives. He applies pressure to us to direct us into the way that we would go, that He wants us to go. So, like with Remedy, I want her to walk over here with me. I'm going to apply pressure with the rope a little bit. Apply some pressure with my hand here, saying you got to walk with me. Quite simply, I'm just wanting her to walk with me. I apply that pressure, and when she follows, there's no more pressure. Whoa. If I didn't already introduce you, this is Remedy. She's going to be helping me with the lesson, or with our message tonight. And I haven't worked with Remedy at all this year, actually. I put her in the pasture last fall, and I have trimmed her feet one time this spring so far. Did a little lunging with her just to see how she would do, and then today I brought her out here for today and did a little more lunging just to kind of see where she was at. But today, in order to demonstrate this concept of pressure and release, we're going to try something new that Remedy's never done before. We're going to see if we can get her to lay down. Now, this isn't it's a very natural thing for a horse to do, even though we see them laying down out in the pasture often. But a horse will never lay down unless they are totally comfortable. They are completely comfortable, they feel safe, and they don't feel any threat. So to get a horse to lay down for you while being directed is kind of a difficult task, because they have to trust the one asking them to lay down. So as I mentioned, we want to see that correlation between the relationship that Remedy and I have as the relationship that we have with, or can have, with our Heavenly Father. I want us to see that Remedy's and my relationship is not one based on fear. She's not standing here cowering in fear, but it's simply out of a mutual respect for one another. I respect her as a magnificent beast that she is, although sometimes she can not act very magnificent. And she respects me because I am the one directing her life. I have the plan in mind for her life. All right. So now the first point that I want us to see with pressure is that I simply forgot that through this application of pressure and then the release, this is how we learn. This is the way horses learn. When we first start working with a young horse, oftentimes the first thing we do is take them out on a lunge line. We're going to see how they respond to us. We apply that pressure. I'm going to do this with Remedy here. I'm going to open up a door for her to walk through. I'm also going to close a door behind her. So I'm going to try and get her to walk forward around me in a circle. Okay. All right, so I'm applying a pressure on her life. I'm opening one door for her to move into, and I'm closing the other door behind her so that she has one option, moving forward. All right, this is oftentimes the first place we start when starting a horse. First time we start working with them. Whoa. There, I closed both doors. I said, nope, we're done. Pressure is released. All right. So we see she's learned that. That is a lesson that she has learned, pressure and release. I applied the pressure to get her to move. She realized the pressure is released when she responds in an appropriate manner. We similarly go through this process of learning that the release of pressure is how we learn. So it's a learning process of how to learn, if you will. When we first enter school, we have this pressure of accumulating the knowledge taken to pass a test. Some would argue that this isn't the best way to learn, as all we're doing is getting the right answers, memorizing the answers, but really that's the pressure of getting the right answers is what causes us to learn the material that is on the test. So we similarly learn that process of pressure and release. Now, over the last couple of months, we've talked quite a bit about what pressure can produce in our lives. If you remember, we've spent a bit of time bouncing around in the book of James, and James tells us that blessed is the man who endureth temptation, or the pressures that come into our lives. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he will receive the crown of life. So through this application of pressure on our lives, we receive this crown of life when we respond appropriately of enduring underneath these pressures. Now, something important that I want us to see when these pressures come along is that, hey, Remedy, it's not lunchtime, it's work time right now, all right? Something important I want us to see in this lesson tonight is that when these pressures are applied into our lives and into Remedy's life too, and I apply these pressures, I never work on something that I know she can't handle. I always know that she is ready for the task. One way that we've said it over the last couple of months, as Todd and I have preached and gone back and forth, is that God equips those who he calls. When he calls someone forward to do a work for him, he equips them. He never calls the equipped, but he equips those that he calls. And similarly with Remedy. So today we're going to try to lay her down, right? That's what we said. So there's three very, very basic things that go into a lay down with a horse. The first one is there a respect for the person asking them to do that. We've seen that. She respected me. I asked her to lunge around me, to go around in a circle. She did that in a very appropriate way. I'm actually a little bit impressed with her. She was very calm with that. The next thing that is very, very important for the lay down is the back. Simply, will the horse back off of pressure applied to the front of them, such as pressure on the halter. We're going to ask her to back up here, and so she can back. All right. So we've got the respect of the trainer. We've got the back, and finally, the final thing that is required to get a lay down on a horse is, can they pick up their foot? Pretty simple. The horse can walk, right? So obviously we know the horse can pick up their foot, but can they pick up their foot when directed? Now, as a farrier and trainer, I know she can pick up her foot, but I'll just demonstrate that. I'm just going to run my hand down, squeeze a little bit here till she picks up her foot. All right, so I applied that pressure and released as soon as she did. All right, so we know she can pick up her foot when directed. Not just on her own walking, but she can pick up that foot when directed. So we have the three basic things required for the back, or for the lay down. So we see here that I'm not asking her something when we move into this lay down. I'm not asking her something that she's incapable of, but I'm simply applying different pressures in her life to get a different result than perhaps would have happened before. Now, the next thing that I want to go over is that the pressures that come into our lives, they don't always make sense. We may not always understand the end result. Remedy doesn't know that I'm going to try and lay her down today. She doesn't know that I made sure that she was respecting me in order to lay her down. She doesn't know that I asked her to back up because I'm going to later ask her to lay down. She doesn't know that I picked up her foot to later ask her to lay down. she simply knows that there are pressures being applied on her in her life, and she is responding appropriately. Similarly, in our lives, we don't always know the lesson that God has for us to learn in the coming days, weeks, months, years of this times that He is applying pressures in our lives. One way that God has been applying pressure in my life recently, and it took me quite a while to figure out the lesson that He was trying to teach me, is simply things breaking. This week I had one truck have 2 major breakdowns on me. On Wednesday, the jack shafts on my truck went out, so I had no 4-wheel drive, had bad bearing noises and whatnot, so I had to pull those out. Truck worked then. The next day, the front wheel bearing went out on the same truck. Now that truck's laid up again, waiting to be fixed. So there's one of the pressures that God has placed in my life, and later on I'll tell you kind of the lesson that God's been teaching me through that. Another pressure God's been applying to me is I have been busy as all get out with my different jobs, with being the associate pastor here and being the barn director at Camp Mishawaka, and then also our business that Jenny and I run, the training and farrier stuff. Just been incredibly busy trying to get everything to work together, to mesh all those areas of my life together to get them to work. And this has been a pressure on me to try and get it to work. And like I said, later on I'll share with you kind of the lesson that God's been teaching me with that. But now we're going to apply a very different pressure on Remedy that she has never had before. We're going to start to extend. We know she can pick up her foot. The next step in that, asking her to lay down, is to extend that time period that she's holding it up. And we're going to ask her to hold it up on her own, in a way. At first, we're going to help her out. The first thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to run this rope around her barrel. And this is just simply an aid for me to help. I'm going to do a quick half hitch knot around her fetlock here while I'm failing at my half hitch today. I think I'm going to have Bob come show me how to do this. There we go, I'm getting it. Alright, so we've got our half hitch, simply so that, now I'm gonna ask her in a way that I've never asked her to pick up her foot before. I'm gonna do it very gently at first. I'm gonna increase that pressure until she responds in an appropriate manner. I'm simply going to tap with my foot just below, whoa, Remedy. No, I'm not asking you to back up yet. She's getting the cart before the horse. See what I did there? I'm going to tap on just below the rope here with my foot, simply asking her to pick up her foot. I'm just going to tap, 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 and I might apply a little pressure with the rope too, just to encourage her to pick up that foot. We'll just see if she'll pick up that foot, and she does. So I'm going to hold it for a second and then release. So we have that pressure to pick up her foot. She did appropriate. I released. All right, hey, lunchtime is not now. Thank you.
Yeah, you
All right, so we're going to try that one more time. We're just going to slowly extend this time out that I'm asking her. And she doesn't understand why I'm doing this. Eventually, the thought is, or the hope is, that all I have to do is tap on her foot and she'll pick it up and hold it until I deem necessary. So I'm just going to tap again, apply a little pressure with that rope, increase more pressure until she picks up. Come on. She picks it up. I'm going to hold it a little bit longer this time. Right? She doesn't understand. She wants to put her foot down. That's okay. Okay. Good job. So she said, okay, I'm done with this. I'm done with the pressure. I said, no, you're not, dear. You're not done with the pressure. You still haven't learned. So I left that pressure there. She came back and said, okay, I'll stand. So I released. I allowed her that opportunity to learn, to have the pressure there and then the release. All right, so once we get to this point in the lay down, we see here that she did mess up, didn't she? She said, I'm done. It wasn't a big mess up, but she did decide to say, no, I'm done. I want to put my foot down. And I said, no, it wasn't. So she did mess up. And I want us to see that I didn't give up on her. I didn't say, oh, you silly horse, you're never going to learn. You're never going to get this lay down. But I kept with her, and I said, no, it's okay. I'm here. It's all right. You've got this. I didn't give up on her, just as God never gives up on us. When he sets forth to teach us a lesson in our lives or to teach us, he never gives up. He continues consistently with teaching us that lesson. I don't know if I wasn't getting the lesson that God taught me the first time the truck broke down and he had to make it break down again to teach me the lesson, but he was there consistently through it, applying that pressure to get me to the point where I had that aha moment, where I learned the lesson that he was teaching for me. I want us to see that God is the same way as I am with Remedy here. I don't give up on her. I continue until that goal is reached. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper and not to harm, but plans for a future and a hope." So I have a plan, I have a future, I have a hope for who Remedy will become, that one day she would be able to lay down for me. So I don't give up on her, but I continue on. We also find, in Philippians 1:6, and I am sure of this, that he who began the good work in me will continue it until he brings it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. So I'm going to continue to work with Remedy until she gets this, until she arrives at that desire that I have for her. Now the final point that I want us to see tonight is that the release, when we come into that release of pressure, that it is sweet. In that the sweet release of pressure, it's very sweet. And that's the title of our message tonight, is the sweet release. So we're gonna push this a little bit harder here. I don't know how Remedy's gonna respond, but we're going to go. I'm gonna pick her foot up. I'm gonna ask her to kneel. I'm gonna ask her to bow or kneel, depending on what you want, and we'll see how she does with that. We'll get that release. We're gonna see if she will lay down for us today. If she does, hey, excellent. She gets that sweet release. So let's just try this here. Grab that rope again. Apply that pressure onto her foot. Get her to pick it up. And eventually, someday, the hope is that this rope will not be necessary. But today, being the first time, we're just going to leave it on there because we don't know what will happen. And honestly, she hasn't learned yet to pick up her foot when the pressure is applied. There we go. Now I'm going to ask her to back up. Or not. But there's an important point I want to point out here.
Or not.
As a farrier, when I go to pick up a horse's foot, well, hey, it's not lunchtime. When I go to pick up a horse's foot, I don't want them to automatically lay down because I picked up their foot, just like Remedy could learn. So I'm going to install a very specific button on her that means lay down when the foot's up. And that's simply going to be pushing right here. All right. So to do that, now we already learned that in order to lay down, we have to have the trust, we have to have the back, and we have to have the picking up the foot, right? We went over the picking up the foot and the respect. Now we have the back. In order to get the back, or the lay down, horse has to back up, because they always go down on their front legs first, and they always get up on their front legs first. So they have to go down onto their front legs. So that back is going to be applied with my hand, and then also installing that button on her chest to lay down. So I'm going to apply that back with the rope. You see I can back her up just like that, but I'm also pushing on her chest there to install that button. So I'm going to actually not do the wrap this time. I find sometimes I can get a little better result here. So it's there, she's picking it up without, oh, half hitch came undone. All right, let's try this again. We're going to apply that pressure onto our foot here. Get her to pick that foot up. Come on, dear. You know this one. I know you do. Come on. There you go. I'm gonna back her up. Back up, dear. She's gonna probably want to put that foot down because she says, "No, I gotta walk backwards." But that's not what I'm asking her. I'm applying that different pressure into her life. Come on. Until she gets to that point where I can give that release, that sweet release that we've been talking about. Come on, dear. Back up. She's pretty sure that this isn't normal. Come on, dear. Okay. We'll try it another time. But it's not lunchtime.
Here it is.
She's pretty sure it's lunchtime. So we're unable to get that, but it is a process. It's a process. This isn't something I was honestly expecting her to do the first time. I remember the first time when I asked her to bow, last time I had her here for a message, I did the bow and I was just astonished. She did it the first time. Now obviously she sat in the pasture all year and says I don't have to do that again. So this isn't something I'm going to give up on. This is something I'm going to continue to work on. And we can find that sweet release. Now, my ending statement that I wanted to end with us tonight with that sweet release is going off of the 23rd Psalm. Which is, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leadeth me beside still waters. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. She knows that I am here, that I am her trainer, that she can rely on me, just as we know we can rely on our Heavenly Father to take care of us. He leads us to the places that we need to go. And when necessary and required, He will lay us down in green pastures where we can relax in the sweet release of who He is. And I said earlier that I was going to share with you the lesson that God has been teaching me this week with the applying of the pressure. And there's one more pressure that God did apply on my life this week. Yesterday morning around 4 a.m. my grandfather passed away. And through that process, it was a process of the pressure of knowing he was going to be going home, that he was going to be leaving this world, but knowing that I had a godly godfather there, or grandfather, in my life to show me the way, to be that example to me. And yes, there was the pressure of him leaving, but there's that joy of him going home. And through that pressure that God applied in my life with my grandfather passing and with the truck breaking down and the busyness of life, I simply got to learn that He's got me. He's carrying me every step of the way. He takes care of me. And when I get that right answer, when I surrender to Him and lay down in the green pastures, I can enjoy that sweet release and the love of the Heavenly Father that we serve. Let's pray. Dear Lord, I thank You for this beautiful evening that You granted to us. Thank You for the sunshine that came out and blessed us this evening as we were able to head outside and learn more of who You are, the great God that You are, the many ways that You love us, the ways that You apply pressure in our lives, the way that you release at the appropriate time that we might learn the lesson that You have for us. I thank You for the lessons that You are teaching each and every one of us here tonight. Thank You for the pressures that You're applying in our lives to get us to be the men and women that You desire us to be. I thank You, Lord, that you do give us that sweet release, that we may lie down in green pastures and enjoy who You are. I pray this in Your holy and precious name. Amen.
Amen.